This is going to be the 85th consecutive sailing of America's greatest freshwater race. We'll sail again an old course and a newer course, and we thought it would be a good time to get everybody together and meet some people who have an extraordinary amount of experience, but an even more extraordinary amount of success with this race and with distance sailing, to kind of have a fireside chat here in our living room about how you win this race, how you prepare for this race. So I've got some questions. We'll kind of moderate this. At the appropriate time, you may have some questions you can ask these guys. But let me introduce you to them. You probably know most of them. But I came here kind of proud of the fact that over my Mackinac racing career, I've collected a couple of first-in-class medals. And I feel like a real piker next to these guys. Let me just introduce them in kind of an alphabetical order. Let's start with Al Declercq. Al, raise your hand, please. Al has over 50,000 miles of offshore racing experience, including, get this, 76 combined Bayview and Chicago Mackinac races, and he's won 19 times. His brother, Bob Declercq. Bob is at the end. Bob sailed his first Mackinac race at the age of 2 in 1966. That's what he told me. And since then he sailed most of the major offshore races around, including a transatlantic passage. He's won 25 Mackinac races, including several overall wins. Peter Griffin, between the Declercq brothers. Pete's owned a lot of boats. He's owned everything from a J24 to an NA40. He's known as a top navigator in the big boat circuit and has sailed many major ocean races, as well as over 50 combined Chicago and Bayview Mackinac races, and he's won 16 times. Paul Kraft. Paul, great of you to come join us tonight. Paul has been racing to Mackinac Island with his family since 1981. In 28 years of sailing, the family has won 14 times. That's about every other year. Not bad. Last year, the Kraft family went to Chicago to sail Chicago's 100th race, and they won their class. And finally, Greg Thomas. Your name starts with T, not something sooner in the alphabet. That's why you're last. Greg has logged 38 Mackinac races, Bayview Mackinac races. He's won 8 of those, finished second 4 times, won the race 3 years in a row, 1988, 1999, and 2000. And he won both the Mackinac and Bayview, the Chicago and Bayview Mackinac races in the same year, in 2007. Not bad. So those are our panelists, our winners, that whose brains we're going to pick. Let me start anywhere, because we're going to work our way through this race and talk around it and about it. How and when do you really determine your strategy for the race? How do you deal with changes in the game plan during the race and adapt to those changing conditions? Let me start with you, Al. What are your thoughts on that subject?
Well, I think that you need to look at the weather conditions and the boat preparation as early as possible. I mean, boat preparation starts right now, and getting your boat organized so that it can be sailed well when the key people on board are asleep. Putting together charts to show when the sails, which sail ought to be up and where all the sails trim, and those types of things. As far as the weather, you know, some of the guys here I know, particularly my brother has won a number of races on the big play. I pay attention to the weather, but over the years I've really focused on sailing whatever heading gives you the best course made good to the mark, because weather, although it's generally accurate, is normally either early or late. So rather than sailing for the if come, I've sort of over the years honed in on just sailing with what you've got, so that some of these guys who've won a lot of races with great preparation probably do more than I do.
We'll talk a little later about planning use of sails in some of the charts that you showed me, but we could illustrate that maybe in a little while. How's that?
Sure.
Pete's a navigator. I'm a navigator. He's better than I have. He's got more medals to show for it. Pete, when you start looking at the weather, I mean, is it a week ahead? Is it a month ahead? Is it? It's not Friday night.
No, it's not Friday night. I think that's, you're not going to pick up many trends and stuff if you're only looking for a day or two before the race. Myself, I start thinking maybe 3-4 weeks before the race, starting to get a pretty good idea of what the trends are. After, like many of you being out there for as many years, you kind of have an idea of Lake Huron or Lake Michigan, which one you're sailing. So you got a pretty good idea. But, about 2 weeks before, you really got to start looking at the trends. And again, I don't know what type of boat you have or what kind of software and stuff like that you can use, but I just like to play around. I have stuff at home and on laptops and stuff where you can load, charting programs, get grid files, weather files you can download for a number of sources, and you just start playing the race, in your living room, and just think, if this goes here, I go here, or this or that. So it's really it starts to get more intense a couple of weeks before, and certainly the week before it's a couple times a day.
What are the sources you use? What do you look at?
Again, I think for that long range, there's a lot of good sources out there for grid files. Again, if you have the software, like an Expedition program or a Deckman for Windows, or even like a Noveltech that can put grid files over a chart overlay, and you just can animate those things over time, will give you a pretty good idea, especially if you know your boat speed. If you have a good set of polars, and you can use the performance software, again, like an Expedition, which has routing capabilities, and it'll take a look at your polars and given the wind direction, and it'll compute optimal courses for you. You can start gauging that to get an idea, and then if you do this a couple times a day, again a couple of weeks beforehand, where you can get updated grid files, you can kind of see the shifting patterns going on, and you just start thinking, okay, if the wind does this, I got to go here. It's all theoretical at that time, but it gets you in the game. But you can get grid files. There's 4 or 5 good places out there. You can do some searching. You can get them from Sailflow. You can get them from Oceans. There's a number of subscription places like Predict Wind offering new grid files now. And then NOAA. It's free. NOAA itself has a lot of graphical representation of both Lake Huron and Lake Michigan, where they do time lapses for you on wind speed, temperatures of the lake, and all that stuff. So there's a lot of good free, stuff out there for you to take a look at.
Pete, one more thing on weather. How do you keep up with weather during the race, and what's legal? I'm talking about outside assistance, and I know you worry about those things.
Well, to keep the first question first, the sources, or to keep up to date during the race, we've done everything from satellite, Global Star, Inmarsat, or just a plain old Verizon a wireless card with an external antenna. And of course, now we're going to Cove Island this year. It's going to be a little different than sailing up the courses of either Southampton or the American side, where you're typically in range of a cell phone, a tower somewhere, where you can get a good cell phone. Going out to sailing out into the middle of the lake and going to Cove Island, you're probably not going to be able to get the cells in as well as you could, sailing up the other shore. But the Verizon wireless air card with an external antenna has been very good over the last couple of years. The coverage is very good. There's a lot more towers out there. So you can usually get a pretty good internet connection. XM radio is also, has a lot of, weather scores. You got to pay for that, but it is legal. You can get it. You can get software called like WeatherWorks that goes onto a laptop, which can integrate into XM radio. And you got Doppler radar, you got buoys, they update. I tell you, just a cell phone, you can dial. They got dial a buoy. You can dial into a number of buoys while you're going up or down the lake. There's a great website that gives you all the airports in Michigan and Wisconsin, and they all have automated weather services. So you just dial into them, and that's updated every 15-20 minutes. And they'll give you airspeed,